a woman in ag, we're starting to realize more is that we do have a unique perspective and we do have a unique skill set and our emotions and everything. And it's not a bad thing. I think it's awesome that we're starting to realize like these are all assets and it's all valuable in its own different way. And I think more women are really starting to find their voice in that. And instead of feeling like, oh, we have to like be as good as men in ag or we have to compete with them, it's like, no, we can just be the best version of ourselves and really provide a different perspective.
Welcome to the Farmhouse. I'm Stephanie Spiker.
I'm Candace Wierzbowski.
And who you just heard is Emily Schaapman. She is the founder of Dairy Girl Fitness, which is an online fitness brand that offers one-on-one coaching and has a pretty large following on Instagram.
On the surface, it might not seem like an online fitness brand would have much to do with women in ag, but Emily actually comes from a dairy background, and it really informs how she approaches fitness and nutrition. So she's out there helping mostly women feel their best, while also advocating for agriculture, introducing people to the benefits of dairy in some cases, and just letting people know that agriculture has a huge impact on obviously what we eat, but how it fuels and shapes our bodies.
Yeah, because I don't know about you guys. I could never, ever give up any dairy products. So it's good to hear a fitness and nutrition person who is being very honest about what dairy can do for you in a healthy way and not trying to make you stop eating them, because I need ice cream and cheese all the time.
Same.
So let's hear from Emily.
Emily, welcome to the Farmhouse. It's wonderful for you to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited for this.
Great. Well, we start off with the same question for everyone, and that is, did you always want to work in agriculture?
Yes, that is probably the easiest question that anyone has ever asked me. I didn't grow up directly on a dairy farm, but I grew up in the dairy industry and I was pretty much born into it. So I didn't always know what capacity I wanted to be involved in, but I always knew that it was the industry I wanted to still stay involved in somehow.
Well, that actually leads us perfectly into the next question. So tell us about your background in dairy, and then are you still involved in the dairy industry today?
Yeah, so for me, like I mentioned, I was born into the dairy industry, but involved, I don't want to say in an untraditional way, but kind of in our own unique way a little bit. So we didn't grow up directly on a dairy farm. We had multiple family members and still have multiple family members with operating dairy farms in central Pennsylvania. But for us, since we were off the farm, we really got involved with 4-H, FFA, Junior Poultry Association, things like that, and really involved in raising show heifers and different youth organizations. So that was a really fun way for us to get involved, and it allowed us to have flexibility otherwise. And that's also where in our other spare time, I really enjoyed playing sports and being active in different areas like that. And so from that, from growing up in dairy, really learning to love like dairy promotion, getting to talk about dairy, and then also being involved kind of just in the exercise space. I went to Penn State and graduated in 2017, so 7 years ago, which is crazy for me. I know it's not that long ago. I was ag business management with a specialization in dairy science. And I knew, and what I really wanted was to get involved in dairy promotion or marketing, something like that, to again connect consumers to where their food is coming from and really showcase how awesome dairy is. I moved south after graduation to where my husband's family is a dairy farm. And I had a couple of different jobs, some involved in dairy, some not. But that's also when I started my own brand, Dairy Girl Fitness. And that is now how I'm involved in the dairy industry. So I'm involved, but in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, why did you choose to name your company Dairy Girl Fitness? Because obviously you come from a strong dairy background, but unfortunately, dairy isn't often the thing that you think of first when you think of fitness plans, right? So why did you choose that name? And also, do you think that it might have affected the kind of clientele that you attract?
Yeah, I know it was kind of probably the winter of 2017 into the beginning of 2018 when I really started thinking about it. I can't pinpoint the exact moment that the name Dairy Girl Fitness came to me, but for me, it just kind of made sense. I was like, I love dairy. I'm a girl. I love fitness, and Dairy Girl Fitness just kind of flowed for me. And for me, it was a way to really combine my passions and feel involved in the dairy industry in my own unique way. Because at that time, we had actually just moved to Florida I moved to Georgia, then we moved to Florida, and I couldn't really find a full-time job yet. And I was like, I just feel very lost and pretty unfulfilled in that moment. And that's where Dairy Girl Fitness came from, really with my passions for how I wanted to be impacting the dairy industry, hopefully in a positive way. And that is where I saw so often in that time in the fitness space, and even a little bit now, is that there was no one promoting the benefits of dairy or even meat, really. I mean, people ate it, but there's still a lot of loud voices spreading negativity about it. And so I wanted to be someone who could talk the talk about, hey, this is why dairy, meat, animal products are really beneficial, but I also wanted to walk the walk with it. And so that's where starting the Instagram page was really kind of my way to do that. And I almost thought, am I going to kind of pigeonhole myself in here with being Dairy Girl Fitness, and potentially that's who I would work with. But it really led into me getting to create this amazing community of women, a lot who are in agriculture, but there are even some who aren't in agriculture, and we get to kind of introduce them into it when they join Dairy Girl Fitness, which is so cool.
Yeah, I have to wonder if like some people see it and it makes them like pause for a second, and it
Yeah.
kind of forces them to look twice because it's not something that you see a whole lot
Yeah,
of.
like you want to learn more.
Yeah,
for sure.
So what are some common misconceptions about dairy's role in nutrition and fitness that, you're trying to correct out there?
Yeah, so I just don't think a lot of people recognize how nutritious milk is. We know as growing up in ag or just being involved with it, it's like, yes, milk is awesome. It's affordable. It's basically a nutrient powerhouse, but I don't think a lot of people realize that. And so when a lot of women, I think, are trying to get into their health and fitness journey, they're just looking at, I need to eat very low calorie things. Don't care about anything else. And that's maybe where they'll make a choice for an alternative because it's maybe lower in calories. And so I just don't think a lot of ladies or just people in general maybe realize just how nutrient packed milk is. And that's where I really try to showcase the protein side of dairy products, because a lot of dairy products like milk, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, whey protein are really awesome protein sources. And that's where I really think we can really continue to showcase dairy. And so I would say misconception is there. And then of course, I mean, we could go down an entire rabbit hole with it. Like, I know some people are potentially worried about like organic versus conventional, or antibiotics, hormones, or coming back to, cow care. And so those are all tied together, but I think would be some of the misconceptions about dairy, or just that it can cause inflammation. So I'm really trying to talk about it in a way that's not trying to like shame anyone for their choices or make them feel embarrassed for maybe knowing things or not knowing things, but really just showing the benefits of it. And again, how I incorporate and how a lot of our clients incorporate it into a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear because, I feel like, your fitness or just the perception of how you see your body already like comes with so much potential for shaming. So like being careful and thoughtful about how you approach it, so important.
Exactly.
So obviously you kind of built your little like empire through Instagram initially. I know you have amassed over 40,000 followers. You have a lot of followers.
We're right around over 43,000 followers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's crazy.
And social media, you can find trends about health and fitness and nutrition that just come and go on social media, and a lot of times they almost are like contradictory, because you mentioned cottage cheese and Greek yogurt, which I've been seeing all over social media because it's packed with protein and people have been using it in recipes. But then, the same time you scroll to another video and it's saying how you shouldn't drink milk, you should use a milk alternative, which is so confusing to people. So what advice do you have for people when it comes to learning about health through social media?
Yeah, so I agree on that part as well everything's very contradicting. It can feel very overwhelming. And when it comes to health and fitness, it really can be simple changes that make a big difference. And I know that sounds so obvious, but like you said, with social media, there is so much information out there. And let's be honest, when we say fear sells. So people are going to promote the things that make it feel confusing, that make it feel scary or fear mongering certain products, because that's what gets viewed. That is what gets views and different clicks. And so I think when it comes to social media, it's first almost just looking like, if this sounds kind of too good to be true, it potentially is. Like, oh, I can lose 30 pounds in 30 days. wow, it's
Yeah.
probably not going to be sustainable or realistic long term. So that's something to be aware of. And also just recognize, who are you listening to or who are you hearing from? And just potentially looking on their page if it's something you are interested in, to see what kind of credentials do they have, what kind of, client transformations do they have. And I really like to make sure that I audit who I follow, but there are a lot of really awesome science-based pages on Instagram as well. I know, just for example, the Food Science Babe, she is wonderful. And she really just breaks down a lot of myths on social media that, again, really try to hit the fear mongering piece. So, really just trying to audit who you follow and really try to find the people that are science based and not selling by fear. If someone's trying to scare you into something, that's where I think you can really audit. Okay, is this person trying to sell me something, or are they, just speaking to hopefully benefit people and help them improve their health?
Yeah. Great tips for sure. Cause there's just so much out there that it's
Jungle out there.
sometimes hard
It is
to
a
like,
jungle.
to wade through the swamp.
Oh, I agree. I get caught in stuff sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh.
All right, so it says on your website that, quote, Dairy Girl Fitness is also committed to sharing the truth about animal agriculture so more women can make informed decisions when it comes to nutrition. How are you using your platform to advocate for ag?
Yeah. And that was really the biggest part, I guess, when I had started, is again, really wanting to combine the two things. And it was for consumers, but even also for myself a little bit, because I, again, grew up in the dairy industry, but not directly on a farm. So I don't want to say I felt left out, but I felt like a little on the outside of it. And so I wanted to be able to create a page and create a space where people felt welcomed and, again, not embarrassed to ask the questions. And so a lot of when I post about anything in ag, dairy, or even fitness, I really just try to bring some entertainment to it. I try to make it funny. I kind of try to make it light, because I think that's what's going to hopefully catch the attention of people who maybe wouldn't be in this space otherwise. And I hopefully just want to create conversations with, again, people that truly just have questions and don't want to feel ashamed or embarrassed for being able to do so. So I really kind of heavily talk about dairy a lot, just because that is where I have my experience. And I know with June Dairy Month coming up, I'll be doing some Farm Pack Friday posts and really trying to touch on topics that I would say are some of the biggest misconceptions, because there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of nitty gritty things in the ag industry, right? And I'm obviously not an expertise on all of that. And so if there is a topic that someone has questions on, or, maybe needs help navigating, that's also where I can show them towards another ag heavy page that maybe has a little bit more experience in that. So I talk about what I know in a positive way. And if it's something a little deeper that I want to make sure I don't get wrong and confuse people even more, I'll direct them to another page. And it's also where a couple months ago, I started my own podcast, Cowgirl Talk, for my way as well, to have some deeper conversations about ag that you can talk about for a really long time, because it's a podcast versus a short form content like Instagram.
Yeah. So I was looking through your Instagram before this interview, and I really enjoyed all of your content. And,
Thank you.
there of course were some negative comments about dairy in some of the posts. And I loved how your responses to the negative comments were very well thought out and positive. So from your experience, do you feel like most people are just trying to be like keyboard warriors, or are they actually open to conversation and learning more?
Yeah, that's a funny word to describe them, because that is what I feel social media has turned a lot of people into, is keyboard warriors, and forgetting that you can disagree without it having to be an all or nothing thing. I think people forget sometimes that you're allowed to have a conversation. And I think sometimes as well, myself included, but us in ag and animal ag specifically, because that's where a lot of, attacks come in at. I feel like we have to make sure we're not always on the defensive. I feel like when someone potentially asks a question, sometimes people are just doing it and they don't want to learn anything. You're not going to convince them otherwise. Sometimes people are genuinely asking the question because they're curious. So I even have to just make sure I'm auditing myself of, okay, like, sit back. If this triggers me or if this makes me mad right away, like, don't respond to it right away. I need to make sure that I can look at this kind of with a clear mind to make sure if this person is truly just curious, I'm not going to come in, with a sassy remark when they were just like, I was just truly curious, because there are some people that I do respond a little bit sarcastically or sassy when it's obvious that they are just, maybe a rude comment. They are not going to be convinced otherwise. But I've recognized, and I actually had a conversation with the dairy doc, Michelle Shack, and she's a vet and she's from Silicon Valley in California. And now she is a big platform, especially on TikTok. And she just made a really good point that sometimes questions seem silly. Sometimes they seem really out of left field, but you don't know who's necessarily behind the screen. And that could be their first experience with agriculture. And so you want to make sure that it can be a good experience again, where they don't feel embarrassed or shamed. And that was even a good reminder for myself, because sometimes I can be quick to jump to like, oh, that's silly. That's weird. I'm not going to take this seriously. But again, that could be someone's first introduction into it. And you want to make sure that they feel welcomed within the space.
That's such a good point, because I think growing up, for me, neither of us grew up on a farm either, but I had family farmed and just around farming, friends who've had farms. So it's like you grow up around it and you just have some sort of basic knowledge of it because it's just part of your life. And I think it's so easy to forget that there are people who have no idea because they have never had that opportunity to experience it. So, yeah.
Truly. Yeah.
I feel like also because it's so close to what we do and our experiences, that it's easy to take some of those comments to heart, whether they're meant to be negative or if they are just a genuine question. So it's hard not to have that kind of like knee-jerk reaction sometime where it's like, oh no, wait, you said that really? Like,
Yeah.
all right, I didn't sign up for the smoke show today, but we're going.
No, exactly. And that's where I think it's helpful to take a moment if you do recognize you have that reaction, because I do, again, think sometimes that if you are always surrounded by agriculture, you really do have to remind yourself it is like a sliver of the population that gets to have this experience. And some people have never seen any of this, and that's not necessarily their fault. And so if they're going to come into it and they do want to learn more, we don't want to shoo them away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, there are plenty of people in the dairy industry that have been using social media to promote the industry. But I personally don't think I know of any others that are doing it through the world of fitness and nutrition, which doesn't mean there aren't, or there might be, but it's not as common. So how have other people in the dairy industry reacted to your brand and your business?
Yeah, it is definitely something. I know when I started, I didn't like invent social media or anything, but I got on Instagram in 2018. And so at that time, there were still people also advocating, but it was still a little bit newer. And so now that there are more people in this space, I would say it is a little more normal, or it's maybe not as taboo of like, you have a business on social media. But it's been really fun to honestly just get to have conversations with more women through ag and dairy because of Dairy Girl Fitness. Social media honestly sucks sometimes, let's be real, but it really also has allowed me to connect with people, but especially women, as that is who we predominantly work with, from other parts of the country, even other parts of the world that I wouldn't have had the chance to otherwise. And then getting to go to in-person conferences, it's allowed me to just form deeper connections. So it's been really fun to get to, again, work with women in this space, get to work with different brands, and get to have conversations like this. This is truly, I think, what lights me up is getting to talk about ag and dairy and talking about it with other people who also share the same passion. So I think, of course, there's always going to be people in whatever industry that, maybe don't want to let the outsiders in. But I think us continuing to share a message and create pages like this, I think, are continuing to welcome more people in.
I feel like that is something that we hear about frequently on this podcast, is the community, right? It's ag has a strong community, and whether that's, people in a small town, or if it's the community that you have found online on social media, it kind of bears out everywhere.
Yeah.
So what are some current fitness trends that you're finding exciting or encouraging that you'd like to talk about?
Ooh, okay. So I would say when I started Dairy Girl Fitness, there were a lot of and there probably still are, but there were a lot of the trends of like how to burn the most amount of calories, like new products to make you easily lose weight. And I would be honest and say I even fell into some of them. I know I had like a waist trainer that basically just made you sweat more. And I was like, oh yeah, this is it. Because when I started Dairy Girl Fitness, again, it was more a hobby. That's before I kind of had any credentials or really actually learned more about it. And I think now more and more, there, of course, still is some misinformation and people promoting really restrictive diets or just exercising to burn calories. But I have seen more and more women really promoting prioritizing your health and fitness because it's truly just good for you. Strength training for longevity, eating more food, eating more protein because we are grown women and we don't have to constantly restrict ourselves. And so I think there is still, of course, negative messages we're always going to have to fight against, but I've loved being able to see more of that, of more women not being afraid to take up space in the gym and finding ways to exercise that really allow them to feel powerful and really just encouraging women to get movement in any capacity. I feel like more recently, I've seen more people start to get into running a little bit, which I grew up playing sports year round. So mostly just cardio because they were running sports. And post college, I was like, I'm kind of tired of that. So I got really into weightlifting, which I still am, but I'm even trying to find my way back to maybe like different forms of exercise I enjoy, which include running a little bit. So it's really fun watching women feel more comfortable in their bodies and learning to, again, prioritize their health to maybe achieve a specific like physique goal, but also just do it because it helps them physically feel better and mentally feel better.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like, obviously, like you said, there's still some toxic entities out there,
Yes.
but I feel like in general, things have gotten better as far as how we perceive women's bodies in culture, in public, than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. I was young in the 90s when like the Kate Moss era was
Yes, heroin
happening.
street
And
thing.
oh man, like I am so glad that we do not live in that era anymore. And I hope that we never trend back toward that because it's not a healthy way to live.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah. So, how do you come up with the recipes that you share on social media or with your clients? And what do you look for in a good, nutritious recipe?
Oh, so with recipes, of course, I want them to taste good. And I think I really do try to showcase that because I think so often when people think of healthy meals, they think boring, bland, gross, or it just has to be the same repetitive thing all the time. Again, what I hear often, even still, is I don't want to eat just chicken and broccoli. And it's like, we don't have to just eat that. It can be fun, it can be exciting. And so with my recipes, again, of course, I want them to taste good, but I do really try to make sure my recipes are going to be high in protein. Protein is extremely important, and majority of people are not eating enough protein, whether they're with us or not. And so with clients, if they're trying to hit a protein goal, I want to make sure I provide recipes that can help them do that. But if someone who maybe isn't a client comes across my page and they make one of my recipes, that's going to help them get in some good amount of protein into their day. And a lot of my recipes, most of them include meat, a lot of them include dairy. So it's also fun way to continue to encourage people to use those products. And for where they come from, honestly, I guess just kind of continuing to evolve of what I've seen on social or in different recipe books and kind of putting my own twist on it. But I really do just try to keep them simple and switch it up with maybe different cooking methods like crock pot or in the oven or spices or marinades and different things like that to showcase it can be simple and it can still taste really good.
Nice.
Awesome. Love that.
I
I'm
know.
glad we had lunch before this, or
I
else I'd be
know.
starting to get hungry right now.
I know.
Yeah.
I was looking, I had scrolled through, like I said, I was scrolling through your page and I had seen some of the recipes that I'm like, I'm going to have to come back to that later.
Yes. Yeah, I promise most of them are husband approved. And I only say that because I know a lot of women that we work with, maybe they have families or partners, and those people can maybe be a little more picky. And so most of them are approved by other people other than me.
I think that's a good point because for people who have families or a partner that they're living with, no one wants to cook two meals, right? Like one for me, one for you, and then or one for us and one for the kids. So being able to find these like good, healthy, nutritious meals that can be crowd pleasers, so important.
I completely agree. It's just, again, trying to remove barriers to making your health and your nutrition a priority. To show again, it doesn't mean you have to turn your life upside down. It's just making potentially some small tweaks and changes that can help you, but also, improve your family's health as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this next question is kind of a two-parter. Dairy Girl Fitness is a team of all women. Was that intentional? And then the second part of that is your website talks about your goal of being here to empower other women in finding strength and confidence. So why is confidence and empowerment such an important part of your business?
Yeah. So when I started Dairy Girl Fitness, I know probably the Dairy Girl part, maybe niched me down a little bit. Of course, there's plenty of men that follow and I still love having conversations with them. But for me, I mean, that was the name of what it started as. And I didn't know right away when I started it if it was going to be a business. I mean, again, it really started kind of as a passion project for me to talk about my hobbies. And when I started to realize I could turn it into a business and started building that, I wanted to work majority with women, mostly because I know that's, of course, what I have experience with. But if I was going to create a community, I really just wanted it to feel like a safe space for women. So if they want to come into the group chat and share a win or even a bad moment, and if there's potentially, a guy in there, they may just feel a little limited to share super personal things. And so that's where I do work just with women so we can have the community where they just feel fully open to be themselves. And I think where we really focus on confidence and empowerment so much is because as women, it is pushed to us all the time of what always needs to change, what's not good enough, the next trend to be younger, to be prettier, to be skinnier, whatever it may be. And there's just not enough messaging to showcase like you are amazing as you are, and you can improve yourself without having to be about those things. It can be about wanting to feel stronger, to feel more energized, to just feel more confident in your abilities and what you bring into this world. And I even, noticed for me that I can be a very outgoing or bubbly person, but I even struggle with confidence or feeling like I'm enough and what I do is enough. And so that's where I feel like just for even my own experience, but I really want to help women continue to just feel like they are enough and they have what it takes to continue going after the big goals, the big dreams, and the scary things, because so often women are pitted against each other. And I feel like, again, we're always shown to put ourselves on the back burner or take care of others. And I really just want to continue to show women, because we work with moms, we work with not moms, we work with career women, whatever it may be, that regardless of the stage of life you're in, that you do deserve to feel good in your body. You deserve to live a fulfilled life. And when you make your health a priority, very often that overflows in such a positive way into those other areas.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. That was such an empowering answer. I love it. And I feel like that is going to lead us perfectly into our final question, which is actually something we also ask everyone on our podcast. So what does being a woman in ag mean to you?
Oh, that's such a fun question. I think so often, again, we're always trying to kind of fit in or find our way into it and maybe try to do, I don't know what others are doing, but I think being a woman in ag, we're starting to realize more is that we do have a unique perspective and we do have a unique skill set and our emotions and everything. And it's not a bad thing. I think it's awesome that we're starting to realize like these are all assets and it's all valuable in its own different way. And I think more women are really starting to find their voice in that. And instead of feeling like, oh, we have to like be as good as men in ag or we have to compete with them, it's like, no, we can just be the best version of ourselves and really provide a different perspective and different thoughts. And that's going to be really beneficial. So I think as women in ag, it just means continuing to learn how to be the best version of yourself and knowing that that is going to be good enough. And you're going to be able to find your space in ag in that way. And as you do that, I think it's going to continue to empower and uplift other women to do the same. And so I love being a woman in ag. And I think it's just such a small world ag is. And so you're always going to be able to really find those connections. And more often than not, the connections that you do make and the women that you meet, they're going to be there to lift you up and help you continue to pave your path.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. We've gotten some amazing answers.
Yeah.
I'm always so impressed.
I enjoy getting to talk about these things.
I would say we get to talk to awesome people like you and just, yeah, it's always great.
It is. Wow. Thank you so much, Emily, for joining us at the farmhouse. It was awesome to have you on and to hear all about Dairy Girl Fitness.
Thank you so much. You can. I've been smiling this whole time while talking, so it is just something I really enjoy. So thank you so much for having me on.
I really enjoyed talking to Emily. I loved her perspective. I feel like it aligned closely with my own thoughts and opinions on fitness and body image. And that's I feel like it's more important to look at what your body can do and less what your body looks like. And I feel like the more I've been able to get into that headspace, the healthier my relationship with my body and my perception of my physical self is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I loved her overall approach to food and exercise and how, it's about more than just reaching a specific weight goal or looking skinny or looking pretty. And it's about feeling good physically and feeling good mentally. And for me, I find that, days where I prioritize getting in a workout or going for a hike or just getting outside and being active, I feel better. I feel happier mentally. And then I also just feel good because it's like, wow, my body did this really cool exercise today. And you can feel really good about that. And so it is such a holistic approach that she's doing on her page and with her business. And I find it so empowering. I really enjoy talking to her. And honestly, it makes me genuinely want to get up tomorrow morning and do a workout.
That's great. I mean, it really is just about enjoying life, right? Because you're enjoying life when you're outside getting fresh air and exercise and enjoying nature. But it's also about enjoying the food that you're eating. Good food is a big part of life. It should be a big part of your life if it's not. And so hearing her talk about how it's not about eliminating all these things, it's about, learning to enjoy them in new ways and maybe healthier ways.
Yeah. And just understanding that, food is fuel, right? You need it. And I love the point she made. A lot of people probably don't know how much nutrition is in dairy. And I think it's slowly starting to change because you do hear a lot of people talk about the protein that can be found in dairy. But yeah, I love incorporating cheese and yogurt into recipes and getting that dairy in and getting those protein sources in. And then, I'm a milk person. I put real milk in my coffee. I will occasionally, if I'm having a chocolate chip cookie, I want a glass of milk. You will not find me ever giving up milk. So
yeah, I feel like with milk, especially because there's so much variety, there's a lot of either misinformation or people who just, aren't aware of what they're drinking. I actually was talking to my sister the other day, and she's into fitness and she works in healthcare. And she asked me, because she knows that I work in ag tangentially, what is the difference between 2% milk and whole milk? And I was surprised that she didn't know. And for those of you listening who aren't sure, that's okay. I'm not trying to shame you. The difference is whole milk has 3% fat and 2% milk has 2% fat. So there really isn't a huge difference between the two. I don't know. I guess it's just a matter of taste.
Yeah, at the end of the day, which one do you prefer? I mean, it's really hardly a difference in terms of fat or nutrition. Also, Candace, it's funny how you say you only work in ag tangentially when I feel like a lot of what Emily talked about was, she's in the dairy industry and the ag industry in a kind of unconventional way, but she's still in the industry. And I feel like for us working at Lancaster Farming and doing this podcast, obviously we are not farmers, right? We are not the ones that make food. We are not doing any of that. But, I love the fact that we still get to, maybe unconventionally, but work in the ag industry. And it's cool to me that your sister would go to you for that knowledge because she knows that, you work in that industry. You're going to know this answer. I think that's awesome.
I like that. And I like the term unconventional better than tangential. So I'm going to use that from now on.
All right. I think we're going to wrap it up here. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you feel empowered and confident. And thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy this episode, give us a rating, give us a review, maybe give us a follow, all the things.
Yeah, if you have any thoughts or questions or would like to reach out to us, you can email us at farmhouse@lancasterfarming.com. We are also on social media at Lancaster Farming.
So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. We love having you here in the farmhouse with us, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye.
This episode of The Farmhouse is copyright 2024 by Lancaster Farming newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family.
It was written by Stephanie Spiker and Candace Wierzbowski. It was produced by Eric Herlock and Matt Lee. The music you've been hearing throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.